Now, as you guys know, Bloodshot was in theaters for about a week or so before all theaters in the country got shut down. We actually weren't able to see it in theaters, but we did buy it on video on demand, and both of us watched it. I personally already gave my thoughts on the channel, so Tim, I want you to go first. What do you think, or what did you think about Bloodshot?
Oh man. Well, I mean, to be fair, you only gave a spoiler-free version of your
That is true, yeah.
So we're both going to be so to preface going in, we're going to talk openly about the film. So if you have not seen the Bloodshot movie, this is your spoiler warning. We're going to just talk freely about it. We're not going to be, trying to refrain from spoilers. So if you don't want to, you feel free to skip to the next section until you do. I will say, so I know that you were kind of iffy on it. You were kind of down the middle where it was like you didn't love it. You didn't hate it. You kind of just liked it. It was just there. I was probably a little bit more on the like side than you.
Okay.
It was, you know why? Because I knew going in, this was not going to be a particularly deep story. They were going to pull from the comics, but it wasn't going to be necessarily spot on.
Right.
And they were going to take their liberties and things like that. And I'm kind of, because Vin Diesel is in the starring role, I was anticipating more. And he's, whatever you think about him as an actor, he has a lot of sway in the movies that he's in because of the Fast and the Furious franchise and some other things that he's done. So he comes with a lot of weight. So I knew that he was going to be directly involved with the creative development of the film as well. So I kind of was just anticipating like a Fast and the Furious version sort of a thing of a superhero movie.
Right.
And that was probably the one surprise for me. And I think it's the reason why I liked it more than I thought I was going to, is the fact that I felt like he wasn't kind of the typical, Dom from, the Fast and the Furious movies. He had that element to him, but he was also a little bit more vulnerable. He was a little bit more confused. That whole draw about his wife and him not, them basically telling him that was his wife, and that whole dynamic of Bloodshot. It was a little bit, I thought it was a little bit deeper than I thought they were going to go with it, which was for me a nice surprise, but it was also fun. It was just a fun movie. There wasn't a ton of action. I really thought it was going to be just like nonstop action. There was more story than I anticipated, but I thought it was a very fair and fun initial outing for the Valiant universe in the live action version of Valiant stories. Was it perfect? No. Was there things that, could have been done differently? Sure. Just like every movie. The one big thing, and I don't know how you felt about this, and this was a major disappointment for me, was there were no hints about any other character in the Valiant universe. There were no Easter eggs. There was no post-credit scenes leading up to anything else. There was nothing that told you this is part of a broader universe. And that was a disappointment for me. I was really looking forward to some kind of a hint at either Harbinger or Rye or Exo, something, and we didn't get anything. So that's kind of a nitpick, I guess, because this was a Bloodshot movie, obviously. But I want to see, like we've talked about many times, we're fans of Valiant Comics and Valiant Entertainment here on the show. And we want to see that get developed into an entire cinematic universe. So I think that this was a good and a serviceable initial outing. And I'm hoping it's good enough to warrant either a sequel or moving into the next. And they don't just give up on it or anything like that, especially because it was the worst timing in the history of ever to release your debut of a cinematic universe, where it really wasn't even able to have its run in the theaters. So I don't even know what the numbers are on the video on demand side for it, how it's been performing. I just hope it's done well enough for them to where they don't just brush it to the side and it gets a fair shake and they're able to expand it further.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said in my spoiler-free review, I'm down the middle with it. Like it's unfortunately for me, it was one of those films that's very forgettable. Like, I don't think, I'll be talking about this movie like a month from now, 3 months from now, or even, like, there were some cool aspects. I did like the fact, I thought they handled, his memory and him trying to figure out who he was, and then the twist of, realizing that everything, like, nothing was what it actually was. His memory kept getting reset from the jump. He just thought that, he had this particular wife and this person killed her and stuff like that. But it was just a narrative that they were using to get him to do what they wanted him to do. So I thought that was handled really well. Some of the action was good too. I liked how, when he would get hit in the face with like a shotgun blast or something, all the nanites would go out, but then come right back in. So there was cool elements like that and stuff. But overall, I felt like it had a lot of cool core Bloodshot elements. But then on the flip side, there was a lot of things I'm like, oh, but why didn't you do this or that? Like, I thought it was weird. I think I did say this in the spoiler-free review, that we never really saw a fully realized Bloodshot. Right. Where you see his skin turn white and stuff around 2 or so times in the movie, but it's really brief and stuff like that. And then they never really they sort of explained the glowing thing in the chest because they showed a mouse or a rat with it, how it glows, and they're saying that's because it was dying in that area or something like that. Right. So they kind of explained it for this movie universe, which is very different from the comic books, as in the comic books, it's pretty much an open wound and their way of entering in to, put the nanites and stuff in there. So, I don't know. Again, it was just very okay for me. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. And I will say, though, I do think now with all this out of the way and the origin done, I do want to see a sequel for sure. With all that said, I definitely want to see a sequel. I think now with, the people knowing who the character is and stuff like that, they could run with it and kind of go on and hopefully expand out to the broader Valiant universe and stuff. I would like to see like Shadow Man and stuff like that, Exo and all that good stuff. But I did think the ending was kind of weird, how he was just like normal dude again, and they just got like in an RV and left with like his new friends now.
I mean he wasn't necessarily a normal. I mean, he was still Bloodshot. He still was, full of. He was just free of, the organization. It definitely. I will definitely agree with you. It felt like an abrupt ending.
Yeah.
It felt very abrupt.
And maybe it was just because I'm always expecting, like, because in comic books and even obviously the comic book movies, by the end of the movie, you get like, oh, now this character is Iron Man. Oh, now he is Captain America. Right. And for me, I didn't feel like, oh, and now he's Bloodshot. I think that's where I'm most torn, where even though, he had that scene at the end where, he's walking, doing that superhero slow motion walk and all the nanites are coming out of him and stuff like that. But I'm like, for some, I guess just the way it happened within the story or the character development, it didn't nail it for me. And the expedition, the dialogue, that's the thing that I think took me back a lot, as far as they were explaining everything to you. I said that in the spoiler-free review. I was just like, okay, all right, but I want to figure it out.
And that goes to me. I think that speaks a lot to budget. I gave it a pass. You know me. I usually do not give passes to films on that. Right. That's a big one for me. That's a big no for Tim when it comes to filmmaking and storytelling, is expositional dialogue. With this one, like I said, I kind of went into it with the mindset of like, this is going to be something where I just turn my brain off. It's going to be shiny objects, and I'm just gonna, I'm going along for just a fun ride of action and so on. Like I said, like a Fast and the Furious movie is basically how I was looking at it. And it did have a lot of expositional dialogue. I gave it a pass because it very much felt like, even in the time and the length of the film, it felt very much like they had a budget they had to work within. And they had a broad story, and they didn't know if they were going to get a second shot at it. For sure. So they had to tell a lot of different things. So they took a lot of liberties. I mean, even the way that Vin Diesel looks as Bloodshot is really different than in the movie, or in the comics rather. So it's like there's a lot of differences. And so I think that also contributed to your feeling at the end of the movie, where it's like you didn't, when you were looking at him at the end, alongside with the abrupt ending, you're looking at him and he doesn't look like Bloodshot at all. And it's because we're used to the comic book iteration of Bloodshot, and he doesn't look like Bloodshot from the comics. It's very much Vin Diesel playing Vin Diesel's version of Bloodshot. So
Vin Diesel
it very much felt that way.
Vin Diesel was like, I'm not wearing a toupee. You ain't putting hair on me. Bloodshot's bald now.
100%. That's what it was.
But you know,
it,
I'll say with all that though, I don't want to make it seem like I didn't like the movie at all or I'm bashing it. I do think if you like Valiant, which we both do, and lots of people do, obviously the third largest superhero universe in comics, and you definitely like Bloodshot, you definitely watch it for sure. Watch it. I think.
Definitely.
I think if anything, I would be upset again if it didn't get a sequel. Because say what you will about it, I think, especially everything going on with the pandemic and the releasing time of it, and even just the movie itself, I think it does deserve a sequel because, you know, first movies to characters that no one knows is you have to tell them who this is. You know, it's not Batman or Spider-Man where everyone knows their origin. No one knows. Most people don't know who the heck Bloodshot is. But so now with this out of the way, they could run with it and do all, you know, the more comic booky stuff and action scenes and start bringing in like Exo and Ninjak and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and like I said, that was like that's really what I want to see. I want to see them hint at and introduce one or two other characters from the Valiant universe, or at least at the bare minimum hint at their existence. I just felt like that was such a missed opportunity with this to get people excited about the potential future. But also to, you know, start broadening that awareness, because a lot of people, while Valiant is the third largest superhero universe in comics, it's a good deal behind in awareness Marvel and DC, still more broadly, I would say, with the general public. And so you just introducing that awareness of like, hey, this is a character in a broader universe. And I really wish they would have done that, and I'm hoping that we get it in the next iteration of the film.
But that's the cool thing with Valiant, right? They're the third largest superhero universe, but with that said, it's still relatively small because you got to remember, like Marvel and DC, like their universes are insane. The X-Men, Fantastic Four, the Avengers, the Inhumans, like there's so many different offshoots, where with like Valiant, there's, you know, there's a good amount, but it's, you know, you could probably name them all at least and not, you know, forget a bunch of, you know, you have like the Harbingers and all that stuff like that. So I think it would be a nice compact superhero movie universe too, where everyone could really understand everything and not be too confused, and you don't have to give too much backstory because, you know, there's not like these 20 different teams and organizations that you have to explain. So I think that could work to their benefit, where everyone could know their universe really quickly, get familiar with them, and then love them that much quicker. I agree completely.
And the other thing, I don't know if you got this too, and this is something that I hope they kind of stick with because I felt like it was different, is this movie and the direction they went with this and how they're telling their story, at least for Bloodshot, we'll say. And I kind of, like I said, I hope they continue this because it would, I think, separate them from what Marvel has done or what DC is doing, is it had kind of a 90s action movie vibe.
Oh, 100%.
Which is, I think, why that's another reason why I think it was kind of it almost felt like a novelty for me. Like it gave me like flashbacks of like the action movies that I grew up watching in the 90s. And that was endearing to me in a way. And so it's not going to probably play the same for everyone. But I really kind of hope that they follow that vibe and they stick with that, because like I said, it's just a totally different tone, and it would really separate them and stick with kind of that like just old school 90s action.
It's like you're watching Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want them to be like overly cheesy or like just, you know, really generically bad or simple storylines, but just the overarching tone, I guess you could say. If you stick with that, I think that could be a really cool change of pace and really separate them from the pack.